going on, guys? I hope you're all having a wonderful day today. For those of you that are new to the channel, my name is Ty, and today in this video, as the title suggests, we're going to be talking about whether or not Star Wars is too political nowadays. Now listen, before I even say a word, I need to put a disclaimer in the front of this video. I never make any type of controversial videos. I think that this is the most controversial that I'll realistically ever get, or I ever have been. But I need to make one thing clear. I am not trying to pick a side here, and you guys will see that in a second. I just want to talk objectively about whether or not Star Wars, I know I keep using quotes, but I need to explain in a second, is getting too political. Let me start off by saying this, because this is why I'm saying, I don't want to pick a side, and this is why I'm saying, I don't want to try to be controversial. Star Wars, obviously, is a franchise, right? We all know that. There's movies, there's TV shows, there's books, there's video games. What isn't there? There's toys, right? That's the franchise. That's Star Wars. Star Wars maybe could get political, I guess you could say, hypothetically. But when it comes to any franchise that has ever existed, there's always two parts. There's the actual product, like I said, movies, books, TV shows, and there's the audience. Without an audience, there's no franchise, because if nobody watches the franchise, why are you making the franchise? I think, personally, that both Star Wars, the actual product, and the fan base has politics in it, obviously. First of all, if you look at something like the Phantom Menace, it's all about trade disputes, this and that. Obviously, not really super related to real world things. Slightly, of course, little hints, but not really. But in the fandom, it's much more toxic. However, let's dive a little bit more into detail here, because, like I said, I don't want to be picking a side here. The main reason that I wanted to make this video is because of the brand new Star Wars show that just came out, The Acolyte. There is a lot of review bombing going on, a lot of hate going on, and a lot of just absolute negativity being thrown at this show. Mostly because of what it's made of, I guess you could say. There aren't really any white guys in it, right? I'm just saying, that's the reality. Also, there's a woman director. And I've only seen the first episode so far, so I don't really want to, dive too deep into whether or not, it's actually justifiable or not. But after watching that first episode, I honestly thought it was kind of bad. But again, I don't really want to get into it. It's only one episode. It's fine. There's a lot of people that are hating the show because it's not good. And there's also a lot of people hating the show because of identity politics. I think that if you're on the identity politics side, you're wrong. It's kind of unfair. You're being wrong. You're being offensive, whatever. But this is what I want to get into, because I feel like nowadays with Star Wars, there's two sides of a coin here. And you have to pick a side, or else, you get labeled as something. What do I mean by that? Let's say that a new Star Wars movie came out tomorrow, right? And I watched it, and I reviewed it on my channel. Let's just say that I said, guys, I absolutely hated the movie that just came out. The writing was terrible. It had horrible cinematography, the dialogue was off, the action sequences were just god-awful, they were just filmed horribly. If I said that, right, without mentioning, oh, also, there's a woman in the lead, oh, also, there's this and that, whatever, because that would be stupid, people would still hate me, and they would say, oh my god, you're racist, you're misogynistic, you're xenophobic, you're sexist, whatever. But if I praised it, and I said, oh my god, that was the best movie I've ever seen. The writing was excellent. And keep in mind, I'm not saying anything about who made it or who's in it or any of the political things that could possibly be in Star Wars. And I just say, wow, it was just shot beautifully. The director did a great job. The cast did a great job. I can't wait to see the next one. Then I would be labeled as a Disney shill, woke, and, a progressive, whatever. And again, this is the most controversial video I will ever make. And I'm still trying to, tread on a nice fine line of just talking objectively and being reasonable, playing devil's advocate, if you will. That's the issue. No matter what side you're on, you're gonna get called something. And there is a serious divide in this fan base right now, and it's embarrassing. I'm gonna be honest with you though. At the end of the day, right, I look at something like the Rey movie, which is pretty much untitled. That's what everyone was just calling it, right? A lot of people didn't like the sequels because they're horrible. But a lot of people also didn't like the sequels because it has a female lead, which I would disagree with. And I'm not just trying to sit here and be like, oh, I'm the good guy because I like when there's a female lead. No, I actually think Rey's like a okay character. I don't think she's great, but I'm talking about the writing here. It's not because she's a woman, obviously. The thing is, there's a lot of people, again, like I was saying, that are not looking forward to this movie because it's the Rey movie, because it's another female-led movie. There's also a lot of people not looking forward to this movie. Again, like I already said, the problem with the sequels is because they don't think it's actually going to be good. My issue is, because now I'm shifting over from the fan base to putting some blame on Star Wars. And listen, I am not saying that Star Wars is trying to, play to the American politics or whatever, you know what I mean? But if you're Star Wars, right? Obviously, if you're Kathleen Kennedy, you have to know, you have to be somewhat aware that the fan base is currently super divided, right? So, why not just not make a Rey movie? And just make, hear me out, a new movie, right? Let's just call it Episode 10, right? Like the next chronological order Star Wars movie, right? Continuing on our legacy, moving on into the future. And it has a ragtag team of heroes, maybe like 4 or 5 heroes, kind of like the original Star Wars in a way, just like a couple heroes, some cool side characters. It has a great story, it has great writing, all new people, right? Why would you continue to go down the controversial path, even if you believe that it's the right way to go, right? I understand that you're probably looking at this from the perspective of, oh yeah, people don't want the Rey movie because it's just a woman, so we have to show them, we have to make this movie. But I would argue they don't want the Rey movie because she's not that great of a character. So all I'm saying is, why not just not be controversial and just make Episode 10 with, new heroes? You could have your female lead and your male lead and, your new Princess Leia, your new Luke Skywalker. Not actually, I'm not saying to remake it. I'm just saying, your new leads, your, future of this franchise. I just don't know why they would go down this road because, hear me out. If they didn't make a Rey movie, I'm gonna be honest, I don't think anyone would care. But some people like me, and I'm not saying I'm the biggest fan of Rey. Like I said, I think she's an okay character. She has her cool moments, right? Once I hear that there's a Rey movie come out, I'm like, okay, that's kind of cool, I guess. But I'm not dying for it. And if it didn't exist, I would not care. So why are you trying to be controversial? Does that make sense? Like, I feel like Star Wars is also kind of adding fuel to the flames. I'm mixing up my phrases here. So I don't want to just say it's fully on the fan base, even though obviously it feels like politics have just gotten so mixed up into it for stupid reasons. And it's gotten very personal when it comes to arguments and stuff. But also, like I said, I have a little bit of blame on Star Wars because I feel like they just keep pushing and pushing and pushing. They're like, we don't want to give you guys good movies. We just want to keep dividing the fan base. And I'm not saying, hey, just give up and say, oh, we're never going to have a female lead. Maybe Episode 10 will have a female lead, and it's a great movie. I would love that. But Rey is like this symbol of like the toxic sequel times where everyone was hating on the movies. And I'm not saying she's toxic. I'm just saying, in general, it just represents that time. Move on. Move on from the sequels. Move on, 100 years or something, and let's start something fresh. The way that I look at The Acolyte, right? It's another TV show. It cost $180 million, okay? $180 million. That is how much most blockbuster movies cost. The high-end ones, like Marvel movies, and maybe it's a little bit cheaper than like Avatar: The Way of Water, but it's way more than something like The Fall Guy, okay? I just don't know why you wouldn't just take that money, and I get it, subscription, streaming, whatever, and put it into a good director, a good writer, a good cast, and make a movie. A good movie that, again, could be Episode 10 or whatever you want to call it. It just feels like they keep pushing and pushing and pushing. And it's, again, I'm blaming both sides here. I think that the woke people are wrong, and I also think the you're sexist, you're misogynistic people are wrong. Both sides are in the wrong here. But it feels like Star Wars is pushing, or, Disney technically is pushing and pushing. And it's making it worse. And I think that's one of the main issues. Why not bring the fans back together? Let's just clean the slate and say, hey guys, let's just restart. Call me crazy, but even the Mandalorian movie, I feel like it just came out in this era. I'm talking about the show while the sequels were going on. And in a way, you kind of just have to cut ties a little bit. And I know people love the Mandalorian, but why not make that Mandalorian movie Episode 10? Basically what I'm trying to say is, clean the slate, because everyone's mouth has a bad taste in it from the sequel era. And I know that Mandalorian kind of started after that somewhat, sort of, and it just kept going from there. But let's just clean the slate and start fresh. We don't need politics in Star Wars. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with having like undertones if you're trying to tell some type of story about corruption or something like that. But all I'm saying is, stop dividing the fans. Because again, the fans are dividing the fans, but I feel like Star Wars, from a business perspective, is almost dividing the fans as well by like doubling down and saying, no, we stand with Rey almost in a way. And I'm like, guys, I would rather you just make another female-led movie just without Rey. Like literally just without Rey. Because I wouldn't mind seeing that, but it's just that she's like this symbol of like that horrible time. Again, I'm not trying to be too controversial, but you know, on the fandom side, you've got these people like Star Wars Theory, right? He's basically the poster child of, you know, toxic Star Wars fans. I'm going to be honest with you. Personally, I don't think he's that bad, okay? Sometimes I think he says really stupid things, but sometimes he's like, hey guys, I just really want Star Wars to be good and for everyone and just have a good time. And I don't want, like, basically anyone hating on each other on a personal level. I want us to all sit around in a circle and say, oh, kumbaya, and we'll all be happy together. Sometimes I feel like he says that. And again, sometimes I think he says dumb stuff too. But I think it's like 51 good, 49 bad. I actually think he's a little bit more on the positive side. I do think that there are some Star Wars fans, though, that are out of their minds with the stuff they're saying. I mean, talking about crazy racist stuff, crazy sexist stuff, that's horrible, right? I'm not saying that's not horrible, because it is. But I just think that also on the other end of things, like you've got people being called racist just because they're like, oh, you know, I didn't really like the last Star Wars movie, or I didn't like Reva in what's it called, Obi-Wan's show, even though she was just a horribly written character. It's just a shame because that's kind of the label you get. And again, I'm perfectly down the middle here. I am not choosing a side. I am just here to talk about whether or not I think Star Wars is too political right now. At the end of the day, if I had to give like my answer, because I kind of danced around giving an answer, I would say technically yes. And again, by saying Star Wars, I'm talking about both the movies and the fandom. Because the fandom is literally half. If you don't have the fandom, you don't have the movies and the shows and whatever, vice versa. Obviously, I think it is more the fandom, realistically. It's not like Star Wars is like, or Disney's like, oh, we need to, you know, make more movies about like this or that just to piss everyone off. I understand that, but I'm just saying, I just wish that, you know, this toxic energy wasn't there anymore. Thank God, for the most part, this isn't really going on with like the MCU or like Pixar. Mostly, I get it. Like, you know, She-Hulk, a horribly written show. In my opinion, it was horrible. But if you said you didn't like it, you were sexist. And if you said you liked it, you're a Disney shill. So that's another type of show where, you know, it's like a flip of a coin, choose a side. The MCU has a little bit of that, but it's mostly Star Wars. And it just feels like project after project after project, which, by the way, mostly end up being bad because Star Wars is on such a bad run recently. Completely forgot to mention that, how the quality has just dropped off completely. So it's not like it's like justifiable that they're really making all these bad shows and these bad movie decisions. I just feel like they need to switch something up. They need a clean slate. And I feel like, you know, I'm not the biggest business person in the world. I don't know every single thing about, you know, running an entire company, right? I mean, that's mind-blowingly difficult, even just to get to that position. But at the same time, just the concept of saying, hey, maybe we should just clean the slate and kind of like turn our gears and, you know, shift our path to another direction, you know? Turn the Titanic away from the iceberg is basically what I'm trying to say. Because it just seems like we're in such a bad state of the Star Wars fandom. And I'm not, you know, the biggest diehard Star Wars fan, but I would love to see Star Wars succeed. I would love to see it return to the theaters, more importantly, because I'm going to be honest with you, I'm kind of getting sick of all these Disney Plus shows from everything. Marvel, Disney, and I love it, the MCU. That's like my number one franchise, but yeah, man, just let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Listen, again, I'd love to hear your, you know, neutral, positive thoughts. You know, I'm not hating on anybody. I'm not exactly praising anybody. I'm just kind of explaining what I feel like is going on with the Star Wars fandom right now. But guys, thank you so much for watching this video. If you guys liked this type of video, maybe I'll talk about some more things like this. Again, I don't want to get like too into this type of stuff. Just wanted to make one little video because it's just something that's been on my mind and what I've been seeing a lot recently. But guys, if you like this video, please consider dropping a like. And if you want to subscribe and stick around, that would mean the world to me. Thank you guys for watching. I love you guys, and I'll see you in the next video.